Hi, I'm Coleen Nolan, and this is my podcast, Let's Talk About Grief, a Reach production brought to you by Co-op Funeral Care. Over the 5 episodes, I'll be using this platform to chat to my special guests about their very own personal experiences of death, grief, and the ways in which they've chosen to remember their loved ones. Each week we'll touch on a different theme, from losing a parent, sibling, or spouse to dealing with grief in lockdown. We'll uncover how many guests handled the initial blow of losing a loved one, how and where they found support, and the coping mechanisms they continue to rely on to get them through the toughest of times. They'll also be sharing their best advice in the hope it'll help anyone out there who needs to hear it most. We'll also look at what happens in the weeks that follow the funeral and explore the many moving, creative ways my guests choose to keep the memory of their loved ones alive. I'll also be joined by Cruise bereavement specialists and Co-op Funeral Care team to share their valuable knowledge. My hope is that this podcast brings comfort and offers advice to people who need it most, whether it's someone suffering a bereavement or someone supporting them. This podcast is a Reach production brought to you by Co-op Funeral Care. Together, no one has to deal with bereavement alone.
People say one day at a time, it's 1 hour at a time. You feel guilty for smiling, you feel guilty for not thinking about them for half an hour. I miss him every day. There's not a day goes by that I do not think of him. And that's okay as well. I just always say to friends or whatever, like I said, you don't have to go through it alone. We had a Bichon Frise Hudson. When he died, it was the last little piece of Brian for me that was dying as well. And he used to lie on the bed with me, Hudson, and he would wake me up licking tears off my face, where I'd be crying in my sleep. You think, I don't want to be here, and you're going to, possibly get really bad thoughts. Don't phone someone, because I was suicidal at times, but I would have missed out on your kids growing up. I still have a t-shirt, I still buy, he used to wear Dior Fahrenheit aftershave, and I still spray that on the pillows sometimes, just so I can, that smell of him there, yeah. Also remember that if you get up and you go out and get some fresh air and a walk, it helped, it really does help.
Well, it's a family affair today, isn't it? I'm joined by my sister Linda.
Your favourite sister.
Okay, I'll say that because you're here, but don't tell the others. So you know why we're here, and we're talking about grief and how you move on and the moments that it happen. And obviously, I know you've been through so much.
Yeah.
The last one being Bernie.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time, the first time was like you lost Brian, didn't you, your husband?
Brian in September 2007, and then Mum 3 months later.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous.
And going through breast cancer at the same time.
Yeah.
How did you find the strength to cope with that?
I think because you have no choice. Well, you do. You have a choice. You know, I phoned Samaritans at one point because I thought, I can't do this. And I had an amazing support through yourself, the other girls, and Tommy and Brian, our brothers. People say one day at a time. It's 1 hour at a time initially. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And people say, oh, you'll be fine, you're strong. He'd want you to do that. And you think, yeah, but I don't know how. I remember I had a counselling appointment and I went to see her, and I just kept saying, I don't know what to do.
Because you'd been together.
He was my first love, I met him when I was 20. We got married when I was 22, and so we celebrated our silver wedding, and he died the year after that. So 26 years married.
And 24/7 together.
And 24/7, yeah, because we worked together as well. And I know I was lucky, and I know that a lot of people don't have that love in their life. So now, 13 years later, now I can look back and smile at happy times. But then it was... I think I say to people now, whenever somebody says, oh, it's terrible, so-and-so has passed away, and I immediately think of their partner, because I get that feeling inside of hopelessness and helplessness. And I think, and so if they ever, if it's friends or whatever, I do say to them, the one thing I promise you is that it will get easier. And it does get easier, because I can now...
Is it a thing of almost like learning to live with it?
You learn to live a different life.
A different life.
Because my whole life, half of me had gone. I'd never slept in a bed on my own until Brian died, because I'd shared with Bernie, and we were kids, we used to share a bed. I remember I used to text you jokingly and go, I've done a man job, I've changed a light bulb, because he completely spoilt me. It's learning to do things, I remember, just like ordering things on the internet, or even being able to have a laptop and do it. Maureen used to go to me, look at you, Brian would be so proud, and all of that. And,
I do remember you phoning me one day and you didn't know how to put the Hoover together.
Oh, I know.
You said, you'll have to come round, I don't know how to do the Hoover. And I was going, that's shocking, Linda.
I know. Well, we were friends with Mike Reid, the comedian Mike Reid, and his wife Shirley. We were great friends with them. And at one point she pulled me to one side and said, you need to learn about life. Yeah. You need
day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember when Brian died, and Ray, God bless him, and Mark, friend of ours, they came and said, where's your phone? Where's your papers? Where's your insurance? And I was going, I don't know. What company are you with? I don't know. Because for Brian, I sang and I earned our money that way. And for him, looking after me was his way of kind of, being equal, if you like. And so I didn't, and so I was spoilt to a fault in some ways, but I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Do you think because Mum died not long after that, it's very hard for your brain to process too much grief at once?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think it made it, you grieve less for Mum because you were still grieving Brian?
I did, and I felt guilty.
Yeah, guilt's a big thing.
I felt, oh my God, you feel guilty for smiling. You feel guilty for not thinking about them for half an hour. Or, I've decided to keep Brian's ashes at home, And initially I'd go to him sometimes, why have you left me? Blah, blah, blah. And then I'd go downstairs, and then half an hour later I'd go up and go, sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean it really, because he didn't want to leave me, But I think with Mum, I think I completely, as you know, with Mum at the crematorium, I completely lost it, and I think it was everything together had just all of a sudden hit me. But I do remember going in again to my counsellor and saying, I just feel guilty that I didn't feel as bad losing Mum as I did.
But I guess because Mum was older
guilt.
And she had Alzheimer's, so I was saying previously as well that it was almost a relief when Mum passed away, because to watch her in that
absolutely, because it was no life, was it?
No life, yeah.
Yeah, but it was still such a shock for me, though, oddly enough. But I remember sitting there when she died. I sat with her for about half an hour on my own, and Tommy and Brian were saying, come down. I said, I just want to have a chat. And I was saying to her, say hi to Brian if you see him. And of course, when I was ill, the two people that I missed the most, ridiculous, was Brian and Mum. Because in the middle of the night, if I sat up, because I felt rubbish from chemo or whatever, Brian used to just kind of rub my back and say, can I get you anything? No. So then I'd lie down, he'd play with my hair or whatever, And with Mum, I just wanted her,
You always want your Mum.
Absolutely. I wanted her to put me on the couch with the bunty, and a Jaffa orange. Yeah. Well, that was it, though.
And then, of course, moving forward, not that many years later, of course, we lose Bernie.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think completely rocked. Not that the others didn't.
No.
But it really...
They're all different losses.
They're all different losses. And I think it really rocked us as a family, losing Bernie, because she was kind of the life and soul of the family.
She was. I remember saying at her funeral that we were broken. Because, she was, we all love each other, obviously, but she was so family orientated, wasn't she? Didn't matter what had happened. If she came to Blackpool, we all had to have a party.
Yeah.
And then when you're leaving at 4 a.m. and she's going, don't go. Don't be such a spoiled sport.
It's still early.
Don't go. I remember going up to see her the weekend before she passed away, and I sat with her, and it was so weird because she was saying to me, because she came to Blackpool in the February and they gave her 2 weeks to live, if you remember. She was in the hospice then for 3 weeks, and they got her home, and it was in July, and she said to me, I've done well, haven't I? And I said, what do you mean? She went, well, I've given you extra months, haven't I? As if she was saying, is it okay now?
Can I go now?
And she said, and I want Erin to have this ring, and I want Steve to have this and all. And then she said, can you believe we're talking about me dying? And I said, no, but it's okay if you want to. It was a lovely moment for me, in the fact that I think she said, I remember these things because of my diagnosis as well. I'm living with that kind of time bomb thing, and I think of her with a lot of things that I go through and think, I wonder if I'll be as brave as her, or as, she was amazing, wasn't she? Organising everything. And
Well, because I think with her, up until that moment,
Yeah,
she was never even acknowledged
No.
that was ever an option.
That was the shock
thing.
for me as well, because she didn't. You're right. She was organising to go away, wasn't she, on holiday? And
we were going to tour again, remember? And
that's
she was
right.
Like, I'll be fine. And I was like, don't think.
And then we were going to America for Maureen's 60th birthday, and Bernie said, I can't fly because of her lungs. And she was looking at getting a cruise, getting
she never really.
She never,
it,
no.
till,
But then that was her way of dealing with it, I suppose.
and maybe that's what kept her going even longer than they thought she would.
Absolutely.
But, it's funny because grief, everybody grieves differently.
Oh, completely. I mean, our family are hilarious.
Yeah.
Tommy, our eldest brother, Tommy, he's our eldest brother. He comes in, doesn't he? And he's just telling jokes and what's.
Yeah.
Blah,
Come on
blah.
now, come on now.
Let's
It's
do
done
this.
now.
Absolutely.
Right,
Come on.
well.
Let's talk about something else. And Brian goes very quiet. And then if somebody says Auntie Sheila's flying in from Ireland, he goes, I'll pick them up, because he wants to get away from it. You know, Maureen makes tea.
Yeah.
It's, Aunt Teresa, God bless her, she used to whisper, didn't she?
Yeah.
Whisper in the corner about, they've died. I think I've learned from it that you have to let people do that.
Yeah, you have to let people grieve in their own way.
13 years Brian is gone, and I only cleared his wardrobe out maybe 2 years ago. I couldn't bear it. Every time I'd go up, I'd open the door and close it. And yet, Aunt Teresa, when her husband died, she cleaned it out the same day.
Well, yeah, and Brian, when Lindsay died, never went back to the house.
No.
Didn't want any pictures or anything.
No.
And sometimes that's hard for other people. What did you find hard as far as, when you saw friends, or you were saying one day you saw somebody and they crossed the street?
Oh, because they don't know what to say to you.
So what would you say to those people?
Just say, I don't know what to say to you, but I'm here. That's all you want. You don't expect them, you don't have to go up and say, you're very brave. The things people say are hilarious sometimes as well. People used to say to me, I don't think Brian would have coped as well as you have. Because grief is irrational, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember crying once and saying to you, do you think I loved him? And you all went, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You couldn't go shopping without phoning him twice,
Oh, God, that used to drive me mad. That absolutely drove me insane.
I know.
I've just got to phone Brian to tell him we're at the shop, so we've just left him.
I know. But I think you have to let everybody deal with it in their own way. I mean, I had my best friends, Graham and Sue, as you know, and we lived with them for a little while, and then, they live in Blackpool, so we're there all the time. I didn't go to their house for 6 months. And every time I arranged to go to their house for dinner or whatever, I would phone up and go, I can't do it yet. And it was because I'd never been there without Brian, and to sit at their table with his chair missing, I thought, I don't know how I'm going to cope. And eventually I did it. The three of us sat down and I went, it's really weird, isn't it, that he's not here? And we all had a little cry, and then it was okay. It's making that first big, brave step, because it will be okay. It's hard to accept that it will ever be okay again, but it's okay. I miss him every day. There's not a day goes by that I do not think of him, and where I think, I wonder what Brian would do, or just even think, oh, I miss Brian, and that's okay as well. And people grieve for much longer than I did, properly grieve. But I just always say to friends, you don't have to go through it alone. That's the main thing, and I think that's why I don't mind talking about it, because if somebody is sitting at home on their own without a great family or great friends, there's so much help out there. I have found that. And for me, my counsellor was amazing, because you were grieving as well. You were grieving because you love Brian, and you were grieving for me. And so for me to go to you or phone you at 4 a.m. and go, although I did a couple of times, but to go, to put my grief on top of you, then it was easier for me to go to the counsellor and say, I hate the world.
But equally, I think, when people say to you, listen, I'm here for you and you can phone me any time. But when you're that person, you go, I don't want to disturb them at 2 a.m. But when people say that,
I think
they
mean it. Yeah,
because I think if you are on your own and you haven't got a big network of family, or you've only got that one friend, I think that friend means it.
Yeah.
And I think you should.
And it makes them, because they don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do. So if just listening to you on a phone call or going around and holding your hand, it gives them something to do.
Yeah.
But equally for that person, don't feel guilty about going, actually, I am going to phone them.
I know,
even though
guilt
it's
is
2
a
in the morning.
ridiculous thing, isn't
Guilt
it?
is terrible.
And if you do phone them at 2 a.m. and they don't want to answer the phone, they won't. You know what I mean? If they didn't mean it. But I think, like you say, well, I know that all of you did, because I did it a couple of times, you know, and I came and stayed with you for about 4 weeks. And
Was it only 4 weeks?
Oh, stop it. You know you were desperate when I
It was
left.
4 years. I'm still not over it.
You may not be leaving this studio if you're not careful. Not alive, anyway.
Well, that'll be handy.
Yeah.
One way to end the podcast.
Absolutely.
And she never left. Do you think, like, we've just had a laugh now, and we've been talking about really tragic, sad stuff. Do you think sometimes people feel guilty, like you said, about even having
At the
laugh,
time.
or having a joke
definitely.
about death? But I think for me, sometimes you have to.
Oh, well, because you're on the border of hysteria in laughing or hysteria
in crying,
sobbing, you know. And so it's a very thin line. And I think, you know, if that's what you want to do, then do it. You have to not worry about what other people think.
Well, I think that's the thing, but I think we all do that. And especially in this day and age of social media.
Yeah.
I think you always... Sometimes you do things like, I don't necessarily post things on Bernie's birthday and all of that, but all of you do.
Yeah.
And I have sat at home, especially the first time it happened, and I thought, oh, I better post something. Because like you said...
You felt obliged.
No, it's that thing of, well, they might think I didn't love her.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now I've got to a point where I've thought, it doesn't matter.
No, you
I don't
do.
care what anyone thinks. I'm not posting for other people
Absolutely,
to get approval from.
Yeah.
But I think people do now.
They do. I mean, I get great comfort out of doing that because, you know, she said about on her birthday having a drink. So I love when people put a drink up to Bernie, you know. And again, it's what you want to do, like you said. You've got to do it for yourself.
And maybe we should. It is difficult watching someone grieving, though, isn't it? When they're grieving different to how you grieve. Because sometimes it's hard not to go, how can you do that when you've just lost that person?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean? And I think we've got to check ourselves now and go, stop judging people on the way you would be.
Absolutely. It's not you.
It's not you.
I mean, I worked the night we lost Lindsay, our sister-in-law. I worked that night because I was doing a show, and I you know, I thought maybe I'll feel better if I work and I'll do it for Lindsay and all of that. And I'd imagine some people would have gone, I can't believe she's working. Her sister-in-law's died. But like you say, just...
Whatever gets you over it and helps you along. So the moments, because I know even now you still have what you call duvet days. Yeah. Where you're just not in the mood for anything. And you want to wallow for a day, basically, and cry or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you find the strength then to not carry that on, especially... Earlier on,
it's really difficult. Like, you know,
if someone was out there and thinking, I can't get out from this duvet.
Do what works for you. But for me, again, it was through counselling. Was that, yes, like you're saying, a day on the couch, wallowing, if you like, having a good cry and, you know, thinking about everything. But then also remember that if you get up and you go out and get some fresh air and a walk, it helped. It really does help. It gets you out of a rut. I mean... And
it's another hour that's...
Absolutely, yeah. And feel like, for example, these last couple of weeks now, you've all been away. Denise and I were in London, you're here in Manchester, Maureen's in Florida, and I have planned for these weeks because I don't want to be in my own too much. I can have a couple of days of my own, but then I'll phone up and go, should we go for dinner tonight to a friend, or should we, anybody fancy going to the park or whatever? Because I know now, but there was a time when Brian died where all I wanted to do was curl up on the sofa and just everybody leave me alone, really. And again, it's that thing, I wouldn't have done that without getting help and asking for help, you know. I remember when I was phoning the Samaritans, I thought, I mean, I did phone about twice and hang up because I didn't know what to say, you know. Yeah. And then eventually I just said, my husband's died and I don't know what to... And I was on the phone for about 40 minutes, just chatting, you know, just talking about it.
That's all you need. And away from family.
And then, of course, when I put the phone down, I was exhausted and I fell asleep, you know. And it really helped me.
Yeah, I've talked a lot to, you know, crews, bereavement. They're incredible.
Oh, I know so many people who've been helped by them.
Yeah, they are incredible. And they do know what you're going through.
Yeah, well, that's it.
We've all lost someone.
Yeah.
And I was saying about grief as well, that we talk about, you know, family members, friends that have passed away, all of that. But there's also people out there, and many people don't understand this, who grieve like that over their animal, like their dog,
well,
because that's been their only comfort.
Well,
and people go, it's only a dog.
I know. But I put that, now when I do that and people don't understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
I had, we had a Bichon Frise Hudson, and you bought it for us.
Yeah.
And he was 17 and a half when he died. He died in 2015. So when he died, it was the last little piece of Brian for me that was dying as well. And he used to lie on the bed with me, Hudson, and he would wake me up licking tears off my face where I'd be crying in my sleep. And if I didn't get out of bed until 4 p.m, he'd just lie on the bed. He wouldn't want to go out. He'd wait, you know. And when I took him, you know, to be put down, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. I was traumatized because, you know, like I say, it was like, I've lost everything up now. That I remember, I think I was with you the year that Brian died, going into New Year's Day. And when I woke up on New Year's Day, I wasn't ready for how sad I would feel that there was going to be a whole year that Brian wouldn't be a part of or know of. And sometimes I say to our great nieces and nephews, they call him, you know, your husband in the sky, as if I've got loads of them all over the place. Your husband in the sky. And I go, yeah. They go, so what did he do? And, you know, if they talk about it. And I can't believe that some of them don't even know him, don't even know what he looks like, or, you know, and I always go to them, he would have driven you mad, but you would have loved him because he was a prankster, wasn't he?
It was a right wind-up, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that New Year's Day was a shock as well. I think you prepare for all the first anniversaries, and then it comes to the second year, and you don't prepare, and the panic, and then all of a sudden, it's a day. You know, then it goes, and the next day is there, and nothing has changed, and that's when you start to heal a little bit, and you know.
Do you look back now, because you've come so far now, and I'm not saying that you've forgotten him, because like you said, you'll never forget him, but there was a time where if you said to me, God, that guy's attractive, isn't he? And then you would be riddled with guilt, remember? And you'd go, I'd have to talk to my counsellor about that.
Yeah.
And that went on for quite a few years.
Oh, yeah.
And I think now you can say that without feeling that guilt.
Yeah.
Do you look back and go, like, would you say to somebody, it's natural to feel guilty, but you don't need to now? Can you understand why you don't need
but I
to
can
feel
only
guilty?
understand now because I've been through it. So I think when it's happening to you, you know, yes, don't feel guilty because, you know, you've had your love and you will always have had that love. And but it's easy to say, you know,
I think the guilt's always there. I still have guilty moments about Bernie.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I should have spent more time with her, or I should have.
Or when she invited me there, I should have gone. And,
yeah. But guilt is ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous
no use to man, no beast.
Yeah.
But it's there, and it's you know, like I said earlier, grief is irrational. So if you sit down and think about what you're thinking at times, you think that's just silly. He would not be bothered about that, or she would not be bothered about that.
I was going to say that actually, if you really think about the people that you've lost, when you know them that well, the thing that's also got me through in the beginning with Bernie, when there was days where I thought, I don't want to go out, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to do anything. And all I kept thinking about was the time she said, you can cry for 2 weeks a lot. I deserve it. I deserve to get out there and start your life. And it was actually those words that I remembered that propelled me forward to carry on and do because I thought, if I really know Bernie, she would be here now going, get out of the bed.
Yeah, absolutely. Know? And Brian, you know, because he had cancer as well, so we used to speak about, you know, we had life-threatening illnesses. So we used to talk about, and used to say to me, well, I would want you to go out and do the best show you could do. I went, what, the day you've died?
Yeah.
I went, don't be ridiculous. I went, I'll give it a week and then I'll get back out there again. But, you know, and that's another thing. Because of our illnesses, he arranged his funeral like Bernie did. Yeah. And I think that is an amazing thing to do, because it took all the pressure off me. You know, when you go to funerals, I remember at Dad's funeral and somebody was saying, "Oh, he'd have loved this," and I'm thinking in my head, actually, would have hated this. You know, but with Brian, when people said it, I went, yeah,
he would have.
He arranged it all, so it was exactly what he wanted, you know. And I think that I say that to people now, to my friends, and I've said it to the girls and yourself probably, that just write it down and then put it away in a drawer, and then it's there so there's not people going, like, we would never have thought Bernie would be, her whole service would be in a theatre.
No.
but it made so much sense because that was her life, wasn't it? Her religion, if you like. And like with Mum, obviously she wanted full mass and I just think it's easier for the people that you leave behind. And I think I've learnt that from losing so many people, and particularly Brian, is that it's the partners. They've been married for 60 odd years and then somebody dies and you go, oh, they had a great life together though. And you go, yeah, but now they've lost half of them.
Yeah.
And I honestly, it makes me go it makes me shudder thinking about being left, waking up the morning after Brian had died and thinking, oh no, it wasn't a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's real.
But it's finding the strength to carry on from that.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
And you do it the best way you can.
Yeah.
You know, and immediately you think, I don't want to be here, and you're going to, you know, possibly get really bad thoughts. Don't phone someone. There's people out there that will make you realise that, you know, I would have missed out because I was suicidal at times, but I would have missed out on all of, you know, your kids growing up and my great nieces and nephews. I wouldn't have known any of them, and I've done some lovely things, and I've had a great life since Brian died. It was a better life when he was here, but it's been worth living, and I'm so glad that I stuck with it. You know, that was the easy way out. You know, to take tablets and say I'm not going to be here anymore. But
then you think about
the people that you've left behind.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote a letter to you all, and I started it off by going, I know you will all understand. Well, of course you wouldn't understand. Now I realise that. Because none of you thought I would be here this long without Brian and blah and all of that. And then when I've read it back, or I showed it to, and at the end I put, P.S. somebody look after the dog. And our brother Brian went, well, two things, we won't understand and nobody's having the dog, so don't even think about it. No point.
I know.
But at the time you think you're doing the best thing for everyone, you know.
But then don't you think, not necessarily suicide notes,
no,
but don't you think as well, even that, writing down your feelings.
Yeah, well, that's what they said. They told me to do.
To the person you've lost, you know, explaining how
just
you
writing
feel.
how you feel.
Yeah, how you feel.
You know, and then you look back on the, you know, you get to the Monday and you look back on the last week and you think, wow, I got through that week and I did some good stuff. And it's like I didn't decorate my house for like 6 years after Brian because I thought I can't change it.
Yeah.
And you all said, come and live with me. And I didn't want to. I wanted to be there because I felt closer to him there. Eventually, Denise came in and went, we've got to change the bed linen. It's calling out to us. But they're all the little things. I still have a T-shirt. I still buy. He used to wear Dior Fahrenheit aftershave. And I still spray that on the pillow sometimes just so I can, that smell of him there,
That reminds you of him. So for, I mean, obviously now you have this incurable but treatable.
Yes, indeed.
Cancer. And people come up to me all the time and go, I mean, your sister Linda, she's been through this and she's been through that and now she's got the cancer diagnosis, and how does she where does she get her strength from? Where do you? I don't know.
Well, I think it's like I said, you know, what's my option? My option is to just sit at home and let cancer win, if you like, by making me somebody who doesn't go out and doesn't want to enjoy life. If I've only got, I don't know how much time I've got left, but if I've only got a couple of years left, I want to make the most of it, you know? And so that's why I, you know, make sure I go for my treatment, take my tablets, try and look after myself. And
you do keep in touch with family and friends a lot.
Absolutely. More so, because they're, you know, life is short, and so to let the people that you know, that you tell them that you love them, and embrace it, have the best time you can, because like I say, otherwise, you know, your illness wins or grief wins, and you know, and then you're like another statistic.
Said, you don't get over it, but it gets
easier, and you learn to live a different life. But your memories will never ever go, and he's in your heart, he's in my heart. He'll always, doesn't matter what happens to me, if I met somebody, married again, whatever, Brian will always have a piece of my heart, because he was my first love, and you know, he may only be my only love, but I had the best. So
well, on that note,
Thank you.
You are a force of nature.
Thank you very much. You're not bad at this, you know.
Do you know what? I feel like we're sitting in the lounge, except there's no tea, which is really rude of
tea. Little, what is it, a spiced rum now you'd be having?
Shh, don't give away my secrets. No, I really appreciate you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And really very proud of you. You are amazing.
Thank you.
Very brave.
And I love you.
And I love you too.
There you go.
See you later. I'm joined now by Manny, who is Co-op Funeral Director.
Yes.
Have you noticed how funerals have changed over the years? I know growing up for me, going to family funerals or friend funerals was very solemn and everyone was in black and it was very religious. Do you notice the change now?
We do. So obviously those sort of more traditional funerals are still there. And also then I think these days now it's I think that celebration of life is quite important. I've seen it growing up at friends from a Caribbean or African background. So there was a lot of upbeat music, a lot of
they celebrate life, don't they?
This is it.
Death.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we sort of we forget that at the funeral, that we know we're there because we've lost a loved one, but this loved one has also had a great life. They've accomplished sort of so much, and whether that be through career, families, achievements. So a lot more people now are sort of going towards that celebration of life. We noticed this year, during lockdown, to be fair, because a lot of people couldn't attend funerals due to numbers. People were having sort of a party or a pre-wake beforehand, and then sort of celebrating that way, sort of best they could. Whether that'll catch on, I'm not sure. But again, it's something we've noticed in Nottingham with a younger crowd. There's no limit now on what you can have. You can.
So there's nothing you wouldn't necessarily do.
So,
what's been the most bizarre thing? I have to ask.
I'd say the most bizarre that a family have requested is this particular family. Their loved one was in. He worked in some sort of film industry, so he worked with a lot of props.
Right.
And they actually had a prop of an arm and a leg that they wanted to stick on the outside of the coffin. As they're travelling to the crematorium.
Like it looked like he was trying to get out.
So, loved the idea, but I wasn't quite sure whether it was. Could we do it? Was it appropriate or not? Yeah. So obviously we spoke to my manager, and I think head office got a call. Because to be fair, if that's what they want, and it's obviously you can clearly see the coffin shut.
Yeah.
Not a problem. And
that's brilliant, because I think for anyone listening now, if you were thinking, because a lot of people have, I don't want to go to funeral directors because they're going to make it and they won't do what we want. But it's great to hear that you will
absolutely
support whatever the family wants.
This is it. So what I would say is the biggest thing that we get taught is to sit and listen. See what a family's wishes are, what their loved ones' wishes were, and you try and make each funeral sort of unique to them.
Yeah.
The fundamentals will always be the same. There'll be a coffin, there'll be a hearse, there could be following cars. But from there we can change the hearse from motorcycle hearse. We can have a horse and carriage. And you can change your carriage colours. There's now a tandem bicycle with a hearse box on the side.
Really?
So there's that option. We've done funerals where we've not used a hearse. They've asked us to take the loved one up there in the ambulance first, and then the family arrive. So some have decided they don't want a hearse because they don't want it to be out there.
Take it in an ambulance.
So in a private ambulance.
Oh, I see.
There's no limit to how we can plan or arrange a funeral. So as imaginative as you would like to get, most of the times we can cater.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you find it easier? People have said that I've spoken to. During the podcast, that when family members who knew that they were sick and possibly dying have left instructions, do you find that easy? Do you notice how much easier that is on the families?
I'd say in general, yes. So whether that's instructions from a wishes form or a funeral plan, when the funeral sort of set out there, I think that's one less burden for the family.
Yeah.
For some families, this is what mum's wishes were. Fantastic. We're gonna go with this.
Yeah.
And other times, actually, we knew what mum meant to us.
So we want to do it this way.
So we want to do it this way.
Do you feel that you almost become the mediators in that situation?
Almost. And it's about finding that balance. It's about making sure that whatever decisions are made that day, that the family are happy with.
Yeah.
And I hate to think that a family have left my office or I've left their house and they're feeling actually most of the choices I made.
Yeah.
So I'd rather suggest the choices and let them decide.
What about after the funeral? Is there aftercare?
After a funeral's taken place, there'll always be what we call check-in calls. So we'll sort of check in the family sort of week 1, week 2, week 3. Just sort of see how they're doing. There'll be certain things that will happen after the funeral's taken place. So once the ashes come back into our care, we'll contact them again, say that your loved one's back. We'll just sort of check in from time to time. And then some families you will notice may not need that as regular.
Yeah.
And there'll be other families or smaller families or people that, maybe it's just that couple. And now they've lost that partner after 30, 40, 50, 60 years. You'll go that extra mile just to check in that, are you okay? How are you coping?
Yeah.
Some families or members of the community will pop in from time to time. And they'll sort of come and have a chat with you and say, yeah, I've been up to this. Or your sister said earlier, that first time going back to her friend's house was very different with her partner. Some of these families, it's those things where they would have gone to the shops together, or gone to the post office, or just gone for a walk around the block or to the park. It's doing those things that for the first time without that person there is normally the hardest. So if we can help it in whichever way, and if we're there ourselves, we put them in contact with people like Cruz.
Yeah.
Who do a fantastic job.
Yeah, amazing.
It's just a case, I think, just looking out for everybody.
Yeah.
And making sure that everyone's where they need to be.
Well, it's great to know that people now can, get in touch with yourselves at Co-op Funeral and, put their wishes forward and they're not going to be laughed out the door or said no to, and, done with dignity and love and respect.
Of course, and I guess, maybe that was the case 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Maybe things were done a certain way.
Yeah.
But I think now as, society moves on, the world's moved on, and then all of a sudden, what might have been strange 40 years ago is now the norm.
It's now the norm, yeah.
So, and I'm all for being different.
Yeah.
So
and for people having what they want.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think that's important. It's also then it help in the grieving process. Because if it's done the way they would like it to be done, I think that helps.
Oh, of course, massively it does. Because there's nothing better than going, they had a great send-off and it's exactly what they would have wanted. I had that with my sister and,
No, of course. And I think, that initial sort of period between arranging and day of the funeral, it can feel very pressured and very... You are preoccupied in one respect. But I think also there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of weight on certain shoulders. But after the service, you can see the smiles. You can see that weight's been lifted almost.
Yeah, and you're there, I guess, to help take some of that pressure off.
We'll definitely try.
Yeah.
And we're there as a guiding hand. For some people, it's the first time they've ever walked into a funeral home. So it's it's about guiding them. It's about showing that you're not here on your own.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Manny, thank you so much for coming in, and also, I'm going to put you forward as for me when I pop my clogs.
Bless you.
I'm loving your ideas.
Hopefully no time soon.
Wait till you get my wishes. You won't know what to do with yourself. You will be put to the test, I tell you.
Bless you.
Thanks, Manny.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
This podcast is a Reach production brought to you by Co-op Funeral Care. Together, no one has to deal with bereavement alone.